Welcome to day 4. Today's daily theme is humble. And day 0 on Sunday, we looked at exiled, and we looked at how the Israelites found themselves in a foreign land under a king who was attempting to destroy their faith. And we too live in a world that is trying to destroy our faith. Day 1, Monday, we looked at wisdom, when Daniel and his friends refused to eat the king's food, and Daniel interpreted the king's dream. And we learnt that fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, that God is large and in charge, and he is good. And while worldly wisdom looks down, heavenly wisdom looks up to Jesus, who is the embodiment of wisdom. Day 2, Tuesday, we looked at faith, where Shaq, Rack, and B-Dog were told to bow down to the idol or die. And they refused. They were thrown into the fiery furnace, and God was with them in the fire. And we talked about how we can diagnose our idols, and turning from them, we would repent from them. And we could do that because Jesus had gone through the fire of the cross for us. Day 3, Wednesday, was repentant, and it was the tale of the 2 trees. The tree of Nebuchadnezzar and the tree of the cross. And we talked about pride and how it dehumanizes us, and how Jesus was dehumanized. He was disfigured beyond recognition because of our pride. And we enter into the Christian life through repentance, and we remain in the Christian life through repentance. And today, that brings us to today, Thursday, day 4 of TeenStreet, and our theme is humble. And we are introduced to a new character, Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, and he has assumed the throne, and Daniel is called in again for his wisdom. And today is a tale of 2 men, Belshazzar, who is a total fool, and Daniel, who is wise. The difference between them? Humility. So let's see how chapter 5 of Daniel plays out.
King Belshazzar gave a great banquet for 1,000 of his nobles and drank wine with them. While Belshazzar was drinking his wine, he gave orders to bring in the gold and silver goblets that Nebuchadnezzar, his father, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, so that the king and his nobles, his wives and his concubines might drink from them. So they brought in the gold goblets that had been taken from the temple of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles, his wives and his concubines drank from them. As they drank the wine, they praised the gods of gold and silver, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Suddenly, the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall near the lampstand in the royal palace. The king watched the hand as it wrote. His face turned pale, and he was so frightened that his knees knocked together and his legs gave way. The king called out for the enchanters, astrologers, and diviners to be brought, and said to these wise men of Babylon, "Whoever reads this writing and tells me what it means will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around his neck. And he will be made 3rd highest ruler in the kingdom." Then all the king's wise men came in, but they could not read the writing or tell the king what it meant. So King Belshazzar became even more frightened, and his face grew more pale. His nobles were baffled. The queen, hearing the voices of the king and his nobles, came into the banquet hall. "O king, live forever," she said. "Don't be alarmed. Don't look so pale. There is a man in your kingdom who has the spirit of the holy gods in him. In the time of your father, he was found to have insight and intelligence and wisdom like that of the gods. King Nebuchadnezzar, your father the king, I say, appointed him chief of the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and diviners. This man Daniel, whom the king called Belteshazzar, was found to have a keen mind, a knowledge and understanding, and also the ability to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve difficult problems. Call for Daniel, and he will tell you what the writing means." So Daniel was brought before the king, and the king said to him, "Are you Daniel, one of the exiles my father the king brought from Judah? I've heard that the spirit of the gods is in you, and that you have great insight, intelligence, and outstanding wisdom. The wise men and enchanters were brought before me to read this writing and tell me what it means, but they could not explain it. Now I have heard that you are able to give interpretations and to solve difficult problems. If you can read this writing and tell me what it means, you will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around your neck, and you will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom." Then Daniel answered the king, "You may keep your gifts for yourself and give your rewards to someone else. Nevertheless, I will read the writing for the king and tell him what it means. O king, the Most High God gave your father Nebuchadnezzar sovereignty and greatness and glory and splendor. Because of the high position, he gave him all the peoples and nations and men of every language dreaded and feared him. Those the king wanted to put to death, he put to death. Those he wanted to spare, he spared. Those he wanted to promote, he promoted. And those he wanted to humble, he humbled. But when his heart became arrogant and hardened with pride, he was disposed from his royal throne and stripped of his glory. He was driven away from people and given the mind of an animal. He lived with the wild donkeys and ate grass like cattle. His body was drenched with the dew of heaven until he acknowledged that the Most High God is sovereign over the kingdoms of men and sets them over them anyone he wishes. But you, his son, O Belshazzar, have not humbled yourself, though you knew all this. Instead, you have set yourself up against the Lord of heaven. You had the goblets from his temple brought to you, and you and your nobles, your wives and your concubines drank from them. You praise the gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which cannot see or hear or understand. But you did not honor the God who holds in his hand your life and all your ways. Therefore, he sent the hand that wrote the inscription. This is the inscription that was written. Mene, mene, tekel, upasin. This is what these words mean. Mene. God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel. You have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Peres. Your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then at Belshazzar's command, Daniel was clothed in purple, a gold chain was placed around his neck, and he was proclaimed the third highest ruler in the kingdom. That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Babylonians, was slain, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62.
Now, if you want to find folly or someone who's a fool, you don't have to look very far on the internet, do you? There's a whole bunch of people doing foolish things out there. I think we might even have something for us. This is sort of epitomizing what folly looks like. These types of videos are around a bit, so let's have a look at what this happens. Yeah, so we've got the guy on his bike. He's doing pretty well. In fact, he's winning. He's doing very, very well. So he does a mono. I think that's what he's doing, isn't it? Oh, no, he's actually standing up on his bike. What a champion, except that he's not the champion. He loses. He's a fool. And there's so many videos out there of people celebrating too early. Anyone seen us celebrating too early? It happens all the time. People start to take glory as they come down the final straight, and someone pips them at the end. And there's a sense of justice almost in that, isn't there? The fact that they acted in such a foolish way before they had finished the race, in some ways there is a sense of justice. And when we use the word fool, we're not trying to be mean. When we call Belshazzar a fool, we're not trying to be nasty. We're actually applying what the Bible teaches us about what folly looks like. Okay? Because the Bible actually has a lot to say about folly and a lot about wisdom. And Belshazzar is put in charge of the kingdom. He's actually not the king. He's the son of the king Nabonidus, who put him in. We call him a viceroy, a steward, and he's in charge at that time. And he's the grandson of our friend Nebuchadnezzar, who we've been focusing on recently. And Belshazzar seems to be making the most of this opportunity to be in charge. He has a massive party. There's 1,000 people there. That's a big party, isn't it? And it's getting pretty wild. And what we see here is probably the first sign of his folly is the fact that he's probably quite tipsy. He's having wine. Now the Bible doesn't explicitly say he's drunk. But considering some of the actions he takes, there's a very good chance that he's become intoxicated. And folly is, the Bible talks about foolishness being connected to drunkenness. And the thing about getting drunk is that you are losing control of your senses. You aren't able to think straight, and the Bible warns against this seriously. It says, in fact, it describes it. There's a lot of wisdom in the book of Proverbs, chapter 23. We read verse 31. Do not gaze at wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it goes down smoothly. In the end, it bites like a snake and poisons like a viper. Your eyes will see strange sights, and your mind will imagine confusing things. The author of Proverbs continues to go on to describe the impacts of getting drunk. And the warning for us in the book of Proverbs and other literature in the Bible, which is what we call wisdom literature, it's there to help us to grow in wisdom, to learn from the mistakes of the past and to listen and to grow. The next thing we see in this account in the book of Daniel is that Belshazzar brings in the sacred goblets that his grandfather took from the temple of Jerusalem all those years ago. Remember how we were talking about exile at the start of the week and how the Babylonians came in and they surrounded Jerusalem and they actually destroyed Jerusalem. And as they were destroying it and destroying the temple, they were actually able to take some of the treasures, these sacred, holy items away from the temple. Now, Belshazzar knew this. He knew they were sacred goblets. And he took them and he thought, look, we're going to use these as part of our party. Even though he knew what he was doing. He understood the story of Nebuchadnezzar's repentance and who the God of Israel was. Now, remember, they're in a nation where there are lots of different gods. They're worshiping all sorts of different gods. But Belshazzar does not listen. That's a very significant part of growing in wisdom, is that you develop the art of listening. Listening to wise people around you. Proverbs chapter 23 verse 22 says, listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Someone once said that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should do twice as much listening as you do talking. I think the ratio should be even greater. That we need to learn. Some of us we like to talk, and some of us are a little bit more extroverted, but it is an art. The art of listening is something that the wise person must grow in. Find wise people to listen to. Some of us have friends who are fools, and we need to be careful who we're listening to. There's stories in the Bible of young leaders who listened to the wrong advice and they got into trouble. And whilst Belshazzar is drinking out of the goblets, they praised the gods of gold, silver, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone. There is a complete disregard to the truth of what his grandfather had learned and experienced. He's not learning from the mistakes of the past. Remember when Nebuchadnezzar was humbled because of his pride? Well, Belshazzar's just completely ignoring all this. And really, his behavior is the opposite to the fear of the Lord. He's just acting in utter arrogance. And again, the Bible has a lot to say about pride and arrogance and its connection to folly. Proverbs 16 verse 18 says, "Pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall." Now, as we saw before, after the hand writes on the wall, we see Belshazzar's look. He looks even more foolish. He's so frightened that his face turns pale, and it's almost comical. His knees start knocking. He can barely stand up. This guy is far from composed and wise. He's terrified. He doesn't know what to do in the face of adversity. He's confused and panicked, and he needs his mum to step in to give him some advice. We also learn that he is completely oblivious to what's going on in the kingdom, because at that very time, the kingdom was basically under attack, and he was on another planet. He was a fool. He didn't know what was going on. This character, Belshazzar, is consumed with his pleasure and wealth, and he's caught out, and he's killed. Proverbs 19 verse 3 says, "A person's own folly leads to their ruin, yet their heart rages against the law." And as we know, Belshazzar's folly does ultimately bring about his downfall. And that very night, his life is lost.
Welcome to the game of life, Teenage DLC. These are our characters who we, TeenStreet, we have control over these characters. We get to play these characters. And we're going to go through 7 levels that's going to have 3 options, A, B, or C. And at the end, we're going to do 1 clap per answer. And the loudest answer our playable characters here will have to do. So, we get to choose what our characters are going to do each level. Are you guys up for it? Are you ready? Yeah. All right. Let's go to level 1. Another student trips and spills their iced coffee on you. Do you A, grab them by the collar and yell at them? Do you B, make sure they are okay? Do you C, laugh? Do you laugh at them and tell your friends how clumsy they are? So, which one do we want our playable characters to do? All right, wait. Shh. We're gonna do a clap. So 1 clap. I'm gonna say A, clap. If you want that one, you can only get 1 clap out of the 3. So A, B, or C. I think it was A. We have chosen A, playable characters. We now proceed to level 2 of the playable game, of the game of life. You are applying makeup for grade 12 formal. Do you A, put on a modest amount? Do you B, put on the full glow up? Or C, put on way too much? All right, A, B, or C? All right, we have chosen C, playable character. We now proceed to the next level. You are eating out with sushi with your friends, and they are competing over who can eat the most wasabi. Do you A, you don't partake and you just eat normally? Do you B, have a little bit just to join in? Or C, down the whole tube? All right, A, B, or C? It is C, our playable character. Down the whole tube of wasabi, please. We're moving on to the next level. You have been playing too much Fortnite and have not started an assignment due tomorrow. Do you A, write the assignment with the help of ChatGTP? Do you B, write the assignment and probably get an F? Or do you C, use ChatGTP but reference it at the end? All right, A, B, or C? I think that sounded like B. You can write the assignment and get an F. Next level. You receive your Macca's order, but there is a mistake. Do you A, get mad at the staff and demand a redo? Do you B, apologize and ask humbly for the correct order? Or C, don't do anything but badmouth the staff to your friends? Do we A, B, or C? Okay, we got A. Next level. During lunch at school, one of your friends passes you their phone with porn on it. Do you A, take a brief look, then pass it back? Do you B, have a good, long look and invite your friends to join? Or C, refuse to take the phone and walk away if they persist? A, B, or C? It is C. Next level. After a group assignment, your teacher gives praise to another student for an idea you had? Do you A, correct the teacher and take credit for your idea? Do you B, do nothing and let your peer have the credit? Or C, say nothing in the moment but remind your group member later that it was really your idea? So A, B, C. Let's do it again. And maybe you guys should change your what you want to do. A, B, C. All right, it is B. Do nothing and let your peer have the credit. That is the end of the game of life. Give our playable characters a round of applause. Thank you. Foolishness, it's not always clear. And sometimes it can be subtle. The foolish options there, they were self-centered. They were arrogant. They were unkind. They were cheating. They were lustful. They were dumb. Foolish actions are the result of a prideful heart. And it shows that we do not fear God. And we think that we can run our lives better than God. That is the ultimate foolishness. The wise choice, it's not always obvious, especially in the heat of the moment. Wisdom takes discernment. And it's hard, and that's why we need wisdom. And Sarah's going to unpack how we can be wise in the moment. So where we're presented with this kind of choice, we will choose the wise choice.
Thanks heaps, Jordan. Good morning, everyone. I hope we... Sounds like I had the wasabi, yeah? No. Sage is okay. For those of you who are worried, he is still breathing backstage. He's okay. Growing up, and I'm going to absolutely show my age here, there was a character in pop culture that every kid on the block knew, and it was Mr. T. Now, those of us here in the room this morning who are the same vintage as me, we would have just had a little chuckle then perhaps, because growing up in the 80s, Mr. T was iconic, and sounds like he still might be a little bit iconic. And had he a TikTok account or Instagram, and had it existed back then, I'm sure he would have been even more of a viral sensation. Because not only did he clearly influence the follically diverse hairstyle of Liam Mavety. You got the photo? I mean, same but different, right? It's like separated at birth. But across the 80s, he did these... Across the 80s, he did these educational videos for life skills, and here is one of the videos that Mr. T put together.
The name is Mr. T. First name is Mr., middle name is that period, last name is T. Listen, and listen good. I'm talking to you. When a new kid moves in on your block, what's your attitude? Do you figure, what do we need him for? Well, I pity the fool that makes that mistake. The friends you already got might not be all the friends you ever need. And when you keep new people out, just because they're new to you, you're only cheating yourself. So don't you ever write nobody off just because he's the new kid on the block. You'll never know what you might be missing till you get to know them. So take it from me, Mr. T.
There you have it. Take it from me, Mr. T. And you could go onto YouTube or such and you could see all of his pearls of wisdom. But perhaps the greatest gift to mankind that Mr. T has given us is the phrase, I pity the fool. I pity the fool. You have to actually say it like that. If you say it any other way, he won't be happy. As the comm teams as we have explored Daniel 5, and we've unpacked the absolute folly of King Belshazzar, I can't help but echo the sentiments of Mr. T and say, I kind of pity the fool. I pity him because it didn't have to be that way. Like Jordan has just unpacked in those situations in the game that we find ourselves in, among the foolish choices were other options, other choices that could have been proven to be wiser. Yet Belshazzar, in his foolishness, in him thinking much more of himself than he ever should have, he rejected wisdom, and that kind of folly always leads to ruin. But TeenStreet, it doesn't have to be like that for us. We can choose wisdom. We can choose wisdom. Now, just in case any of us are sitting here this morning and we're confused because we thought, wait, I thought today's theme was humble, but yet I'm hearing a lot of wisdom. I thought we did that back on Monday. Yes, we did. But wisdom is a massive theme of the book of Daniel. And it's not just a theme of the early chapters. And we will show you throughout the course of our main sessions this morning how humility and wisdom are intrinsically linked. And it's perhaps also important for us to distinguish that some may categorize wisdom and knowledge as the same thing, but they are different. Knowledge is for the head, wisdom is for the heart. Knowledge teaches you, wisdom transforms you. The book of Proverbs, and Dan has already noted a few passages from here, it's a notable book of wisdom that is available to us in the Bible. It speaks pretty bluntly about the foolishness and the implications of folly, yet it also speaks about and champions the pursuit of wisdom. Proverbs 2, verses 1 to 8 says this, "My son, if you accept my words and store up my commands within you, turning your ear to wisdom and applying your heart to understanding. Indeed, if you call out for insight and cry aloud for understanding, and if you look for it as for silver and search for it as for hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He holds success in store for the upright. He is a shield to those whose walk is blameless. For he guards the course of the just and protects the way of his faithful ones." I think from what we have already gleaned in the story of Daniel thus far, I think we can already, and how he operates, the things that he lends himself to and those that he doesn't, I think it is safe for us to say that the kind of wisdom we see in Daniel, it's a beautiful example of biblical wisdom, as it is both God-given and God-centered. But as we spoke about with the faith of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, being the kind of faith that eventuates out of daily rhythms of devotion to God, the same can be said for wisdom, for the wisdom of Daniel. Though a teenager when we first met him back in chapter 1, come the time of the events of chapter 5, Daniel is a much older man. And so when Belshazzar summons Daniel for help, Daniel presented there to the king, having banked years and years of doing the right thing. Years of walking out life rhythms that were established in the righteousness and devotion to God. To get an idea of what I mean by life rhythms, here are some of Daniel's life rhythms. He prayed. Back in chapter 2, when the edict was declared that all wise men in Babylon would die, Daniel gathered his friends and they prayed. And we'll see even more as we continue in our story of Daniel, just how much prayer is essential to his daily life. He pursued holiness. He was above reproach. It says there in Daniel 5:11 that he is noted of having the spirit of the holy gods with him. He was countercultural. He stood out for all the right reasons. He didn't want to eat the food of the king's table. He was a man of peace. He never brought the drama. And he was careful with his words. We notice in the book of Daniel that every time Daniel gets an opportunity to speak up to those who are in authority or position, he is always invited to do so. He never inserts himself into the conversations. He didn't babble, or to perhaps cite another Mr. T reference, he didn't jibber jabber. These life rhythms established for Daniel something of a reputation across Babylon. He was known for this stuff. Even King Belshazzar's mother knew of Daniel. However, life is full of pitfalls and snares, and we often make wrong choices. But it is comforting for us to know that no matter what foolish choice we may have made in the past, the Bible encourages us to ask God for wisdom. James 1 verse 5 says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him." The language we see there in James, it implies humility, a coming to God and an asking. Just as a lowly in resources beggar may ask us to give them something, the same can be said for the lowly in wisdom. We can go to the Lord and we can ask him for heavenly wisdom. And he has promised to give us all that we need for our daily tasks.
Excellent. We've heard a lot about wisdom and foolishness, and in just a moment we're gonna break for shush time. But as we prepare, maybe the question you need to spend some time in prayer about is, Lord, is there wisdom that I need that I just don't have? And reflecting on that passage about requesting and asking God for wisdom. Spend time in prayer, soaking in that. Am I living a life of foolishness? Is my behavior betraying my theology? Are my actions undermining the things that I believe about God? Foolishness. Or is my life aligning with the wisdom of God? I'm going to give you 10 seconds to gather your things, but just stay quiet as we do that, and then we'll head out to time. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.